Hello and welcome back to Custom Gamer. My name is Daz and this is the show where we talk about level design while playing commercially available titles. So this is a new show format I'm trialing called Final Draft, where we can look at the level design in commercial games, try and find out why things were created in such a way and how that affects the player experience and all that other good stuff. So we're going to have a look at the intro to Nova Prospekt today from Half-Life 2, as it's a really interesting intro. For a couple of reasons. The main reason is that you've just been given the Antlions that you can control through these theropods. If you haven't played Half-Life 2 for a long time, and I wouldn't begrudge you for that, it's been a while, you've just done a little tutorial which basically explains to you how to use this new bug bait which controls the Antlions. So you can right click and they will follow you around, or you can throw the bug bait and wherever it lands, the Antlions will make a beeline for that location and attack anything there. And this is interesting to look at because it's a method of player teaching that Valve does very well and does very seamlessly in conjunction with story and combat and all this other good stuff. So this area is cool because the player already knows about these thumpers and how they affect Antlions because they've seen them before in the I think it was the sand traps area of the game, where you're in the car going around and the Antlions are scared off by these thumpers. And they've placed them again here in the environment just to remind the player what they do. It gets the player to kind of go up here, gets the player to turn them off, and it teaches the player that you can turn them off, and it gets them to do this twice, just so that it really makes sure that the player understands that, okay, I can turn off these thumpers, which lets my Antlions through. And the repetitions there is quite important, just to make sure the player has definitely learnt the mechanic. You see this a lot in Valve games, even games like Portal, where they'll get you to do a specific task multiple times just to really make sure that you've actually learnt it. Now we get on to some combat. So the way this level is structured, it slowly builds more and more layers on top of the Antlions. So you start off with no combat, no anything, it's just turn off the thumpers so the Antlions can progress. And now you've got this section here. Another interesting note is that these sections are kind of all barricaded off by walls, so they're all kind of self-contained. So this section we've got combat with combined soldiers, but there's no thumpers here, so again you've just got one piece of gameplay. So we learned how to turn off thumpers to let the Antlions through, and now Valve is trying to teach you how to use the bug bait to kind of throw at combined soldiers to get the Antlions to attack them. Now we move on to this section, so now you've got a thumper and the combined soldiers. This area is great because although it's teaching all these different mechanics and how they kind of interact, you're still kind of left to your own devices, so you don't have to use the Antlions. You can just run around with your gun if you want to, or you can use the Antlions to just decimate everything. I'm kind of doing a mixture of both here, 'cause it's just cool. So we can clear out the combined soldiers here, clean out the little pillbox here. Now we have to turn off the thumper down on the beach in order to progress and let our Antlions through. Clear out some more combined soldiers here. All this combat here is also teaching the player that they essentially have an infinite supply of Antlions as well, so I don't really need to worry about losing them. There's always like combined grenades or, you know, just random gunfire, especially from the pillboxes, will just take out hordes of these Antlions, but they just keep on coming. And the great thing about these mechanics is that it ties into the story of the whole area as well, so because you're turning off all these thumpers, the Antlions can actually get into Nova Prospekt, whereas before you'd imagine they'd just have this impervious wall of thumpers around the prison. Which is why you're having all these Antlions bust into the prison when you're actually inside. So in this section there's kind of minimal cover, and it's trying to get the player to use the Antlions as kind of bait. So you can throw a bug bait out into the field in front of the pillbox, all the Antlions will rush towards it, get mown down by the machine guns in the nest, while the player can kind of dodge from cover to cover, taking minimal damage. So again, it's just reinforcing what the player already knows, that the player can use the Antlions as just cannon fodder in order to progress himself. This area really drives that home, because if you don't use the antlions as bait, then you're just going to get mown down by the machine gun nests. They're pretty nasty in this area of the level. For good reason too. Again, you really want to get the player to understand that the antlions are tools to be used. You don't necessarily have to cuddle them and worry about their very lives. So we come around the side here and take out this pillbox now. Now this area is kind of interesting because once you've taken out these guys in here, you kind of turn around and you notice this big combine light behind you. This is just kind of putting bright objects in the environment to kind of draw the player's attention. So you see here, it's basically the only thing that really stands out in this scene is this big combined light on the floor over there. That's just to get the player to notice the way to progress is actually through the tunnel here. You can look over the side here, but you can just tell there's cliffs in the distance. No actually way to progress up there. You just got more machine guns up there. It just looks like a death trap. Now this area is just kind of teaching the player to use antlions in an interior space as well. So it's a fairly simple area. You just got lots of kind of parallel tracks going on here. The fences are kind of cool. The fences are always cool in games because you can see through them, but you can't progress through them. So it's great to kind of show the player something that you don't want them to get to straight away. And they're interesting to use in a combat space as well because it puts a barrier between you and the enemy, but you can still shoot through it. This is interesting here because the antlions are melee only, so you can shoot some combat soldiers that they can't reach instantly. The only thing I really wasn't too fond of in this area was that the antlions can really get in your way here. With all the kind of narrow doors and tunnels and things like that. They can really kind of impede your movement, especially when there's a big firefight going on. That's the last thing you want. So yeah, these fences, again, you can just shoot through them and kill the combine while your antlions go around the other side. It's cool here because you can just use them as a distraction, or you can use them to take out the combine soldiers while you kind of hang back. It's all really down to the player how you want to handle it. Just got to find those secrets. So that's all the tutorial areas over now. So now the player has a good understanding of how the antlions work. They have a good understanding of how to attack lots of different objectives with them. They know that they can use the antlions as fodder to get past brutal areas. And now the map kind of changes and just starts throwing stuff at the player that they have to now deal with using these new things that they've learnt. So there's a lot more pillboxes now, a lot more machine guns. There's a lot more combine soldiers. And the area we get to in a minute is kind of the culmination of everything the players learnt so far. They have to put to the test in this area coming up in a moment. I love the way you can see the prison off in the distance. It's a great way to kind of foreshadow where the player's going. So the player knows roughly what Nova Prospekt is. They've heard little anecdotal stories here and there in the game up until now, so they kind of know it's a prison. And it's kind of got this reputation as being the kind of combine Auschwitz, I suppose you could say. It's got this very, very dark and horrible reputation. But you never really know what to expect when you get there. And this level acts as a really great kind of intro to what Nova Prospekt is. So you've got all these heavy combine fortifications. They really don't want you getting in there. You can kind of see this huge prison looming on the hill in front of you. It's very, very foreboding. And it's this feeling of kind of fear and excitement as you're approaching it. You really want to explore it to find out what's in there, but you're kind of terrified at the same time about what you're going to find. In a way, I suppose you've got this morbid curiosity as well. But it's very, very powerful. It really does make you want to progress forwards. So this is kind of the final area. You've got a pillbox, you've got lots of wide open space. So you have to kind of avoid the pillbox, use the Antlions to kind of get closer, and then have this big fight with the Combine once you're here. Now we're kind of getting the picture painted for us that this is definitely a maximum security Combine jail of some sort. So this area here is it's a new kind of piece of player teaching and just kind of a fun little segment in its own. So the pipes kind of lead the player's eyes upwards, and again you've got the strong lights up there as well. So the player kind of knows, okay, I want to get up there, how do I do that? To explore around a bit. And these kind of fence posts here is kind of draw the players around here like, huh, that looks interesting, let's have a look around here. Now we have like a little puzzle segment. So we've just had a lot of combat, so now we've got a little bit of downtime. There's some Antlions just completely derp it into the water. The old game is old, I guess. We get to set fire to some zombies, because that's always fun. This is something that James mentioned in his level design analysis videos, that players love to be sadistic. He's absolutely right. It's always hilarious to set stuff on fire. So now we've got the same kind of thing. You've got Combine in placed weapons in a hard to reach location. And you can either take them out of the crossbow, or you can use Antlions to you can throw bug bait out there and get the Antlions to attack into it, while you kind of maneuver around a little bit. You can see they're just wreaking complete havoc up there while we kind of find a way up. Look back and see the rest of the level. That's always cool. If you can get to a high place and have a look at the rest of the level from up there. Even if it's part of the level that you've already kind of completed, it's always fun to see where you've come from, how far you've gone. Good measure of progress. So again here you've got the bright lights above to kind of draw the player's attention. Then you can throw the bug bait out there and have the Antlions just murder everything for you. This is a creepy moment, so you've got the you've got the fast zombie, which of course pushes you off the edge. I think I died here a couple of times the first time I played Half-Life 2. It pushed me off the edge into the water more than once. Okay, so now we enter the kind of final area where the player puts everything they've learnt to the test. And I love the way you can kind of look up through the bars here and see parts of the level, so you're kind of being forewarned that there's lots and lots of enemies up there in guard towers with machine guns. You're kind of told this right from the start, so you're kind of preparing already. So this is the part of the level where the player can just demonstrate mastery of everything they've learned. So you've got guard towers with machine guns, you've got Combine on the ground, you've got open areas that you need to use the Antlions for bait. And then at the end you've got something you haven't really experienced before that the Antlions can't really help with, is the Combine gunships, which are very nasty in this level. So you can throw the bug bait up into the towers to clear them out, or you can do it yourself with rifle, of course. It's just more fun to use the bug bait, really. And the interesting thing about this is that wherever there's kind of a threat located in this part of the level, there's always like a bright warm light near it. So in all these guard towers you've got the bright yellow lights here. And as you get into the prison as well, like all the buildings which are occupied with Combine have bright yellow lights coming out of it. And generally everything else in this area is kind of very, very kind of monotone. So the coloured lighting here really stands out and helps to draw the player's attention. So you can hear the gunships coming in now. And this area is pretty tricky. I mean, I died recording this. Yeah. Two gunships at once, and there's not a lot of cover out here. I mean, there's enough, but it can be very tricky. So you're kind of diverting all your resources between clearing out all these combined strongholds with your Antlions, while at the same time using cover and taking out these combined dropships. It's a lot to do all at once, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. So again, here you've got the warm lighting showing that there's a danger in here. Once you've cleared it out, you've also got things like suit charges and ammo and health. And again, in the distance there, you've got more warm lighting in the room with the combined soldiers in it. So you can kind of use the bug baits as bait for the combined dropships. It does kind of work, just not as well as you might hope, because they tend to just die in 1 or 2 hits. You can kind of use them as a distraction. So you've got all the large kind of refuse bins here on their sides that you can crawl inside if you really need a lot of cover very quickly. You kind of just want to hang around that area. And the gameplay here is obviously trying to take out those guard towers before they kill you. Alright, so let's get back into it. Let's try not to derp it too much this time. What's I saying about derping it? Yeah. I'm still terrible with grenades after all these years. So the main gameplay here is hiding inside these bins until the gunships fly overhead, and then making a break for the rocket container up on the ledge there before being shot in the face. While simultaneously using the Antlions to take out the combine in place weapons. It's quite a lot to handle. It's a very, very fun fight. There's lots of health all over the place, so as long as you play it right, should be okay. There goes one of them. You've got to be careful with the explosive barrels all hidden all over the place, because the gunships will shoot them if you're close to them. They're very sneaky like that. And there we go. Now when the first gunship blows up, there's an explosion in the wall there which opens up the way forwards. I mean, Antlions can't follow you in there. But this is because that Valve wanted to make way for introducing the Antlions again later inside the prison, like coming through windows and through holes in the ground, just to make it really cool like that. So again, we just had a huge fight, lots of action, so now the pace is winding down a bit and we're having a little bit of a puzzle segment, which is fairly simple, but it just helps to break up the action. So we just got to go in here, use these valves to turn off the flames in order to progress. I mean, it's simple enough. There's a little bit of just ducking and jumping over obstacles, turning valve wheels to remove the danger so we can move ahead. But again, if it was just more fighting in here, you'd end up with combat fatigue, which is why it's here, just to break up the action a bit. And then of course we have a hard block, so the player cannot return. This is just to force the player to keep going forwards. I mean, you could just walk through the entire level and go back, but Valve stops you from doing that to keep the forward momentum. Alright guys, that was the intro episode of Final Draft. Let me know what you think. We're going to do all kinds of games on this, perhaps not even just FPS, but all different games. So I will see you next time.